Illinois Stories is brought to you by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, Illinois Arts Council Agency, and by the supportive viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello, welcome to Illinois Stories. I'm Mark McDonald in downtown Springfield between 5th and 6th Streets, right next to the Illinois Association of Realtors building on the plaza. This plaza you're going to see a lot more of in coming years because it's going to be a public space for public events. In this program, we're tying this project in with the old Y block, which is down there, and the new restoration of the Executive Mansion, which is over here, tied together by the same architectural firm, and many of these people are working together to make this all come together for Illinois' bicentennial. Gary Clayton, the Illinois Association of Realtors started working or thinking about this project several years ago. I guess maybe, what, 3 or 4 years ago?
At least. I would go a little bit further than that. Actually, we moved or built this building and moved in June of '07. Shortly after that, a few folks, Paul O'Shea, Bob Gray, Kent Massey visited me, and they talked about a plan that was in place, at least in writing, of the connection of Jackson Street. Well, we acquired the 2 parcels of land between 5th and 6th because Jackson Street was not platted. Mm-hmm. And they wanted to know whether we would devote some of the space for a pedestrian walkway between the Lincoln home and the rest of the historical sites. Well, we thought about that, and they didn't go away. Mm-hmm. So ultimately we said yes. And then the bicentennial came around. And our leadership decided that if we're going to make a statement and do this, let's do it right. So we made it a plaza, as is being developed now, and it will be an access point for not only tourists but the citizens of Springfield as well. Mm-hmm. And then we wanted it to be more than just a walkway, and that's why there's 16 historical interpretive panels out there, and it's about people and events that shaped Springfield, human rights and civil rights. Mm-hmm. So we think an opportunity for people to also be able to walk through, but also to learn a little bit more about Springfield.
If you look behind you now from your office, and you got a great office because you got an overview of the mansion and the old Y block, and of course your plaza here. And as you look down on it, you can see what an improvement this is. And it's multi-use. You could use it for a number of things, couldn't you?
Yeah, it can be. We will have some requirements, and the requirements are we're pretty much into civic and social clubs and organizations. We're a non-for-profit, so we like to keep in that frame. We'll be working with the city too. The city will have an opportunity to use it, and we'll have some guidelines. But it will be a tremendous venue for the area, and we'll see how it plays out, but we expect quite a bit of activity.
Just recently you got a chance to light it up at night, and you get a chance to see what it looks like with the lighting. What was your reflection on that?
I had really no real conceived idea what that would look like, and I was totally impressed. Mm-hmm. The way the lighting works, the computerization and the structure of the lights, I think people in Springfield in particular, when we light it up on holidays and other events, they will want to come by and take a look. Mm-hmm.
Well, Gary, thank you, and good luck in the future. It looks like there's going to be a very active future here, right, in this with the old Jackson block next to the Realtor building.
We certainly hope so.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Kent Massey at Massey and Associates. You have been sort of on the ground floor of this project, and it's interesting because of all the three projects that are going on here. You've got your hands in there, and you're kind of keeping it together, aren't you?
Trying to.
Yeah.
Yes, the project really started with a corridor study done back in 2014 that our office did, and out of that has grown these 3 projects that now are 3 major projects in downtown Springfield that are coming together coincidentally all at one time, which will be July 14th.
And actually, that's the way things should happen. We're in the plaza now that we were talking about with Gary Clayton. We're gonna walk up toward from 4th to 5th.
Still very much under construction.
As you can see, it's a work in progress, but there's a lot more done than undone at this point.
Correct. And this goes to the credit of a lot of people, a lot of workers on all 3 projects with a deadline. And I think everybody's pulled together, as well as the design teams on all 3 projects. So
yeah.
It's
nice. And of course, some of this is not decided yet. The block where the old Y was is now, it's been taken care of.
Right.
And it's ready to be built upon, but we don't know what that's going to be yet.
Correct. We do know that the south 1/3 of it, which we'll hear about later, is kind of restricted now. But the Jackson Street, the old part of Jackson Street there in front of the mansion, is all new, from way below ground up.
Yeah.
So.
And as we look across the street then, across Jackson Street to the mansion block, and we're going to talk to the landscape architect over there, but that's also part of the same project, and they've been, as you can see, they're working like bees over there.
Right. I need to correct you. She's the architect.
She's the architect. Okay.
Right. She's the architect.
You're the landscape architect.
Correct.
She's the architect.
Right.
Okay. All right.
And and Crawford, Murphy, and Tully, and you'll be talking with Chris, are the engineers for the other part. So really, the 3 different design teams have a lot of common elements in it. And that's part of what has pulled this project together. And you'll see it with common materials that were used and patterns and so on. So everything has this kind of red and tan theme, which is pulling off of colors of the mansion, of the Realtor building, and of the Capitol in the distance.
That's why it's nice to have somebody like yourself who's involved in all 3 phases of the thing.
Right.
It does help tie it together, doesn't it?
We hope so.
Yeah. Well, listen, you got to be really happy when you see this plaza here on the Realtor's property. I mean, this is going to be, much of it's going to be for public use. You got to feel really good about this. It's going to enhance the city enormously.
I think this will be a wonderful connection between Lincoln's home and the Capitol complex, and it kind of pulls everything together. And each of the blocks will have its own character, but the idea of Jackson Street being this different corridor, Capitol Avenue is the ceremonial street. You know, it's where the parades will continue to occur. We're hoping this is the more casual connection that not only visitors will appreciate, but a lot of the residents. And as Gary was pointing out, the lights and the other activities that can go on here on the plaza, I think will really bring the community together with the visitors. So we have constructed this so that, well, we talked about stormwater earlier. We're taking care of all our stormwater here on site. This plaza will be able to drain instantaneously, virtually. We have power here for everything from a big band to whatever activity may be dreamed of. And we kept it purposely open and flexible so that everything can occur here if necessary, even tie downs throughout the middle of the plaza so we can tie down tents. But the light show, as you'll see, is really one of the features that I personally enjoyed working with the lighting designers and so on.
Well, thanks, Ken.
Sure, thank you.
Mark Mahoney, as we look back at the Realtor's Plaza that we were just standing in, you can see how all this is going to play together. Now we're standing at, this is no longer called the Y block, but a lot of people recognize it as that because this is where the old YWCA building is. The city owns it now. And as the Director of Public Works, you've had more than a little bit to do with this, haven't you?
Yeah, well, and it's really been our responsibility since 2014 when the city did acquire it from the state. And there's been a lot of discussion, a lot of work really you've seen, especially here in the last several months with what the different projects are going on with the Realtor, the Jackson Street improvements here with the streetscape, and of course the restoration of the mansion that's going on too. All kind of tie this area all together.
Give us an idea or an update on what's going to happen with this block.
Well, there's a lot of discussion on that. There has been. There's been requests for proposals from different development approaches, and that discussion is really continuing. There is a concept that was presented actually to the council to consider that still basically it's in committee. And what it was for a park designed by really a world-renowned architect, Peter Wirtz. The mayor had worked with him and actually the Mansion Foundation Group, and he gave a concept, a design of something that could happen here if we went with a park concept. There's still discussion of other uses of the block as well as possible development. There's been some discussion maybe of a UIS presence downtown, maybe even a Southern Illinois University presence in the law school. So a lot of that is really up in the air right now, a lot of discussion, but there's a lot of options, a lot of opportunity for this block.
For most of us who don't know anything about engineering, we look at this vacant lot and we go, big deal, what was all the work about? but just to get it in this condition was a lot of work, wasn't it?
It was, and people that remember years ago what this block was like, there was the Abraham Lincoln Hotel, a massive structure on the corner here of 5th and Capitol. The block was basically filled in, the Roxy Theater. So we have a block that over the last really 30 or so years has changed dramatically. You see nothing on this block right now except for the activity, the work we're doing underground. But really it's been a dramatic change over decades of what we're looking at today. And we're moving in a new direction, trying to repurpose this block, this area. We know this area was very vibrant at one time, and we're trying to return that.
Yeah.
Probably a different use, but return some of that vibrancy to this area.
You know, we're going to talk to an engineer who worked on the water issues for this block, or in fact for this whole area. But just from your point of view, you lived in Springfield a long time. This was so flooded at some points that it was a city swimming hole, wasn't it?
That's exactly right. You talk about that history. If you go all the way back to the 1850s and beyond, there was actually an open creek that ran through this area. It's called the Town Branch. And a lot of the settlers settled along that branch. A lot of the timber, the water, those kind of resources, hunting. It was because of that they settled in this area. So as time went on and this area was developed in the downtown area, it became a problem. There was flooding, those type of issues, and then also dealing with sewer. So over time that was closed in, but you still have those issues that go with that. It's sort of the natural flow of water. When we have a massive storm event, you'll see a lot of flooding in this area and other areas of downtown. And part of that's driven by trying to get that water into the town branch that's now all enclosed. So it's always a constant discussion, you know, how we deal with that flooding and the more actually severe rain events that we're having.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Chris Tretzel, you're an engineer with Crawford Murphy Tilley, and you're working with the city on this project. And Mark Mahoney was telling us that water was a real issue here because this old town, I guess it's called the Town Branch, was first a creek and then an enormous combined sewer that went through here and would flood all the time. And it was, no matter what you did on this property, it was going to be a problem, wasn't it?
Exactly. So back in the olden days, 150 years ago, what we had here was a creek running through downtown. And so in about the 1860s, they decided, according to Mark, they decided that it was flooding too much, so they figured they'd enclose the sewer. So they enclosed it with a brick arch sewer back in about 1860. So this sewer, what we're standing on right here today, is it's a 150-year-old brick arch sewer that was relined in about the 1970s with concrete on the inside to help kind of make it structurally sound. So yes, we have about a 1,800-acre watershed that comes through this creek that is now enclosed, and when there are heavy rain events, yes, it comes to the surface, and it's not just stormwater. It's sanitary.
It's a combined
sewage,
sewer.
It's a combined
man!
Sewer.
Well, as we walk, okay, let's walk along this. Right now, the sewer is right underneath us. How far down there is it?
That sewer, the sewer itself is about 15 feet to the bottom. The system that we installed here as part of the project is about 11 to 12 feet. So we're a little bit above the natural flow line. So what we tried to do is avoid the daily flows with this system. So what we want to do is help alleviate and help capture some of the more high intensity storm events.
So what's underneath? What are we standing on?
What we are actually standing on is about 60-inch diameter, basically 60-inch diameter plastic pipes. It will hold. They're linear in nature. It will hold about 340 to 350,000 gallons of stormwater, or when that system is activated and it's surcharged. So basically, once the town branch begins to fill up, it backs up into the system, and then it slowly, as the town branch slowly recedes, and it stops raining, and here it goes downstream. It slowly recedes back into the system and lets it go. So it basically gives it a little bit of room to breathe is what it does.
So this answers my question about what in the heck has the city been doing all this time? Because you see all this work going on, and you say to yourself, because you don't see the results topographically, you don't see the results.
Right.
It's all underground.
Right, so that's kind of what we're showing here with some of these pictures we've been looking at, is basically, because it's combined sewage, we could not do a surface solution to this problem. We couldn't put in a giant pond to help store this sewage because it's raw sewage. So that's why we had to bury it out of sight, out of mind. But it does allow a little bit of flexibility for future development of the block. Stuff on top of this could consist of like parks or stuff like that, because you wouldn't be able to build a building. But it was quite a bit, and the contractor did a very good job, getting it done, getting it in the ground, and we did this right in the middle of springtime. And so they were not only dealing with the rain that was falling on the site, but they also had the town branch fluctuating the whole time too on them. So it was a pretty challenging project to get done on the timeline we had.
So roughly a third of this block, which is the south third of this block, can't be built upon because you can't squish those pipes, right? So you can't put a building.
Right. So what we allowed for was about 4 to 5 feet of cover over the pipe. So you could do some small things like seat walls or maybe a pergola or some playground equipment like that.
Yeah.
So there is no building. This will now probably forever, and I say forever in my lifetime, be basically reserved green space is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So
thanks for the info.
no problem. Thank you for having me.
Laura Hokulai, we have been focusing on the properties adjacent to the mansion, but anybody that knows anything about what's going on in downtown knows that this project is really under full steam now.
Correct.
And you're the architect on the project.
Correct.
Welcome to Springfield. You're
Thank
from
you.
Chicago, right?
Yes, we are.
What firm are you with?
Vinci Hamp Architects.
Vinci Hamp. Okay, so you've been working on this for how long?
This has been a heavy job in the office for 2 years.
Is that right?
We got approval about 2 years ago to just run with construction documents, get it bid, and get it rolling so it could be done for the bicentennial this August. We started construction last May 15th with the majority completed by May 15th this year, and the site work continuing now, as you see, with the rain, the cold, whatever we've had this winter.
Yeah. Actually, you got a break in the weather right now.
We did.
We thought we might have a rainy week, but we got a nice dry week.
We did.
And that really does matter, doesn't it? Because certain things, it looks like you're doing a lot on the outside right now.
We are. Part of this project was redoing the entire site, not only to make it ADA accessible, but to clear it out so you now have a view of the mansion from all the streets around it, and the mansion has a view of the city, which it had originally, and many of the governors that lived here commented on how they had a view of the Capitol from their front yard. When we started this, you did not have a view. So now if you could take a look around the site, it's not completed yet, but we've cleared it out a lot. All the brush by the fence is cleared out, and now anybody walking by has a clear on view of the mansion up on the hill.
Let's take a little walk around the front.
Okay.
As we look at, I call it the portico, but you know better than I do. What's the big porch on the front of the mansion that we look at?
That is a big porch.
Big porch, okay.
This porch that you see here is the original porch design of the 1855 mansion. The front part of the building was built in 1855, 18,000 square feet, with a porch like this with the stair coming straight down. In 1900, it changed to a bifurcated stair with a rusticated stone face. It was much heavier on this really Italianate 1855 building. And since we also changed the pedestrian entrance from down on Jackson, we wanted a very welcoming entrance up to the grand front door, which is this original 1855 curved entryway. So this is a much smaller front entrance than it had previously when we started the job, but we feel much more inviting and more appropriate to the 1855 building.
Is that sort of the goal from this whole, is it a restoration to the 1855 period? Or is it different? Is it sort of a hybrid?
It's a hybrid. When we started this building, that front porch had been changed about every 40 years. We could not go back to 1855 because in 1900 they changed the roof line. And 1970 they put all the mechanicals up in that roof. So without a complete renovation, we could not restore it to any given date. So this is a renovation, not a restoration. We are trying to emphasize the 1855 building. We changed the cornice and the widow's walk up on the top and the front porch to reflect what was original between 1855 and 1900 and bring those details back to the historic building. The 1972 addition is 30,000 square feet behind this, and we tried to uncouple it and keep it as a separate addition and the front historic building to really be the focus of this renovation.
Okay, so you may not have nothing to do with this, but if the front end is the restored building, that may be where the tours go on, and the back end probably that'll be for family and first family.
The back end is the apartment for the first family. There's a ballroom and a library where they have events, and on the ground floor are the offices for the staff and a commercial kitchen.
Now, are these the colors that this mansion will be when it's finished?
These are the colors it will be. So everything was painted white. The trim, the handrails, the windows when we started. We found original wood on one of the windows and did investigation and looked at all the layers under it. in the 1855 to 1900, the colors range from different gray tones, a couple whites, a couple greens, and one red. It was mostly gray. So, and we have a great resolution, high resolution image from 1900 that shows this cornice and decorative handrails, which we recreated from that image, and zinc stampings that you can still buy, and had a metal worker assemble it all and put it up.
I assume that there are a lot of work being done inside as well, but we're seeing a lot of stuff going on. What's going on outside here? What are they doing?
Outside, there is going to be a new entry plaza, and they're paving it with bricks, so that when tours enter on Jackson Street, come up this curved walkway, which is ADA accessible at the right grade, they can gather the groups up here, talk about the mansion before going into these side doors under the vestibule and start their tours inside.
I see.
The interior of the mansion is complete at this time. It's fully furnished, and the art installation is currently being installed. That will be completed next week. What they're finishing, the east yard is finished. They're moving down to Jackson Street, and next week all the sod and plantings are going in this front yard as well.
What a handful. I bet it was a thrill to get this job, wasn't it?
It's been a lot of fun. These are the kind of projects our office does, and we just dig in, investigate them, and try to bring it back.
Well, it's beautiful.
Thank you.
Thanks, Laura.
Thank you.
Neil, you got a playground here. You got like 2 or 3 acres of dirt. What do I do with it? You know, what does a landscape architect do with it? So it's kind of a playground.
Right. At first, you got to get people up to the site. So it's important that we had proper access and for the handicapped and to get them up to the site. So we changed the entrance off of 4th and 5th Street, brought them in off Jackson, get them up. But then it was, at the time, quite overgrown with vegetation. So the concept was to open it up, let people see the mansion from the street, and bring them up. So this whole area out here will primarily be turf sod, and you'll have large trees for the shade, and just a different experience as you walk up the oval path and get up to the mansion main entrance.
We look right over your right shoulder there, and we can see that will now be the Jackson Street entrance, and that'll be ADA compliant, like you said, and it'll also be for the public when they come in for tours. And I assume that they could probably, if they want to enjoy the grounds, they could just come in and walk the grounds, because it'll be open, won't it?
Correct, yes. It'll all be open and accessible to the public. You can come in here, walk the grounds. The east lawn area is brand new. It's been regraded to make it more user-friendly. So all of this area would be, accessible to the public.
Right behind us is an immense tree, and there are other immense trees on the grounds here. Somebody had to choose which go and which stay.
Right, yes. We had that difficult task, and it was hard to take out some of these trees to make this area accessible, but it did need to be done in order to do that. Some were right in the pathway. We had to remove those. Others we opened up for the views. Kind of an experience as you walk along, so you get some shady areas, some sunny areas. But yeah, having to remove a couple of the large trees was difficult. Some of them were sweet gum trees, which the mansion groundskeeper did want to get rid of, just a maintenance concern. But it all worked out well. A lot of them were small trees, but in total we probably removed 30 to 50 trees on the site.
Yeah.
So.
And there'll be a lot of turf.
Correct.
Any idea, okay, like how much sod? I mean, that's a ton of sod to lay down.
Right, yeah, it'll take them about a week's worth to install the sod here once they get it all prepped and graded. So we're probably talking, an acre or 2 of sod, and then the irrigation to go along with that to keep it watered and maintained.
And you can see that those irrigation lines they're being put in now. They're digging ditches right along the sidewalk here, and you can see this will be underground, and there will be a whole network of these irrigation pipes underground here.
Correct, yeah, there'll be a network of pipes, and then where the water comes up, there'll be a sprinkler head. It'll spray out about 30 feet or so, and they're strategically placed to where all the sod should be covered and well watered when it's all installed.
Yeah,
so.
And lighting, of course, is important. As you can see, you had to put all new lighting in here, and that's easier said than done, isn't it?
Correct, yeah, in an existing site like this, what we're dealing with is, in order to get lighting, you've got to have electricity. And so to get that electricity here, we had to minimize where our trenches were coming around some of these large trees because we didn't want to disturb the root zone. Yeah. So it presented its own challenges, for sure.
And another challenge is when you've got a sloped area like this, you've taken out of the trees, you've taken out the bushes, you've taken off the turf, you've got a lot of exposed dirt here.
Correct, yeah, and we've dealt with that here within the last couple weeks. So with the slope surface like this, there's no sod on it yet. We have had some erosion. You'll see the erosion control wattles here to help protect that, but some of this soil has washed down this slope. Yeah. They've had to clean it up. We hope that all that will get resolved when they get the sod down.
What did you call that? A wattle?
A wattle.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, a straw wattle.
Yep. That's a term that probably only landscape architects are familiar with, but now we all know what a wattle is.
Right.
Okay, very good. Well, Neil, thanks. It's been an eye-opener listening to you and to everybody else involved in this project. Thanks very much for your time.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Well, now they're shooting for mid-July opening, and the whole purpose of these three projects to work together to open for the bicentennial in August. With another Illinois story in Springfield, I'm Mark McDonald. Thanks for watching.
Illinois Stories is brought to you by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, Illinois Arts Council Agency, and by the support of viewers like you. Thank you. For a DVD copy of the program you've just seen, send 1995 to P.O. Box 6248, Springfield, Illinois 62708. Be sure to include the program name, subject, and when the program aired. You can also order with your credit card by calling 800-232-3605.